Festiie fam, the time is now. Festival goers unite. Welcome to the Festiie Files, where we highlight the inspiring creatives who all collectively bring the festival experience to life. Whether you are a festival attendee, a festival organizer, someone that's a vendor at an event, or you're the headliner DJ, we all play an important piece in this puzzle. And my name is Desmond Beristain, CEO of Festiie, the Festival Smart Band. Today, we have a special guest. Just a little bit, I'm going to open up here. I have gone down this entrepreneur journey, right? Festiie started with festival goers seeing a problem and wanting to address the problem, right? And that has sent us down this entrepreneurial route, which teaches you so much about life and helps you grow. Well, this person, one of the things when you're growing and on this journey is you reach out to mentors, people that have, already walked that path and are consistently learning and maybe even, have experienced things so that they can pass that tutelage down to you. This guy right here definitely has experienced all of that. So his famous quote is, "Time is our most precious commodity." We have here, this is a long list, but it's great. So this guy, at the age of 19, he created a coffee formulation drink. Boom, got that acquired. He acquired legendary Inkwell Coffee House. He's designed and formulated. He's worked with beauty products. He has e-commerce for different salons. Named one of the top fastest growing internet companies 6 years in a row. He's worked with Amazon with, if you get that 100% or 90%, 98% feedback, that's always great, especially if you're doing that over decades. He has patented platforms. It's interesting. He's also launched a music festival industry or music industry family group that became Macy's iHeartRadio Top 25 Rising Stars within 1 year. I mean, the list goes on and on. He's created a mesh network of software to keep people connected. Hey, that sounds a little bit like Festiie. And he's just built relationships. And, even before going on with this list, remember, it's all about relationships. And that's why we had to bring him onto the festival podcast, because we want to talk relationships. So yeah, he's maintained, various seats on boards for multiple companies, whether it's tech, IoT. Oh man, this is awesome. I gotta just, I'm gonna have to attach this resume, this portfolio to to the description here. But ladies and gentlemen, Brian J. Esposito. Brian, what's up, man? Welcome on to the podcast, Esposito Intellectual Enterprises.
Hey, how are you today? It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Thanks, man. I gotta get a sip of water because that list just kept going and going and going.
Well, I gotta thank you for nailing my last name. Usually, sometimes it gets butchered, so appreciate you giving it the correct pronunciation.
Yeah, man. I'm fluent in Spanish, so I was like, you know what? I'm giving it the Spanish flair. So I'm glad that worked out. So yeah, Brian, let's get into it. Let's talk about your involvement with the music space, the music festival space, and let's start there, because right now, and the reason why we kicked off this podcast is to shed positive light, obviously during this pandemic, and just instill comfort for festival goers and music lovers worldwide. So talk about your background in the music industry and why you're kind of still drawn and connected to the community.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually started early on when I was running the Inkwell, which is a late night legendary coffee house on the Jersey Shore. I like to always I compared it to Fridays meets Starbucks kind of an atmosphere. But what was really cool about it were you had artists, poets, musicians. They'd come in there and they would play whatever they created, or they would cover something, and there was no set band or schedule. They would just get up and start performing. And the beautiful thing about that place, it's been around well before I was even born, starting in the 60s when the first Inkwell opened up in West End, New Jersey. And you had Bob Dylan wrote lyrics about it. Bruce Springsteen was always in there and performing and writing some of those most famous songs in this place. Danny DeVito had his high school reunion there. So the place just gravitates to bring in some really exceptional talent. And being young and running that place with my brother, and he now currently is the one that fully runs and operates and owns it. But that got my itch in the music industry, and seeing how creative people can be. From there, I left that restaurant, and then I started the first B2B, B2C beauty e-commerce and beauty company. So between great timing, teaching myself the code, and having access to some incredible brands, we really just crushed it. And through that era of my life, we launched some of the biggest brands by some of the biggest celebrities, performers, artists, musicians. And as I was doing that, and we were moving a lot of product, I always thought, wow, it'd be amazing to actually own the brand or the entertainer that we're moving product for, because it was just I always compare it to an ant farm. We had products come in, we'd promote it, we'd ship it out, and it was a very successful period of my life. But it wasn't what I loved. I loved the code, I loved technology, I loved marketing, and then I loved the music industry. So tying those three things together set me off on a path that definitely was not easy, not paved with silver. It was, I got my ass kicked in every new industry I went into, which I always appreciated it. I wanted to find out how dirty and ugly it can be, because that's how I did the beauty industry. That's how I learned the restaurant industry. Teach me everything. Show me every snake in the grass. Show me every awful, wherever the bodies are buried, so I know how to overcome them, how to avoid them. And so I wasn't shy to having to figure things out. When I launched the beauty company, I got attacked by things I never even thought of. There was a technology attack called a Joe job, where a competitor would attack our ISP, and our site was completely down, and I couldn't get turned back on. And I had to go and find people that actually are hired to do that, as oddly as that sounds, to figure out what are the steps to get it to stop, and get the site turned back on. And just for some reason, everything I'm involved with, it's not always easy, but that's okay. I actually love the challenge. I love navigating through it. And then that led me to launch a music company. And then we launched an apparel company. And in my mind, I was creating this ecosystem where I wanted to protect the beauty company. Was the original concept. I didn't want to have everything in that one basket. So I wanted to diversify the company and started utilizing the long and tremendous reach that we have, and start building these other companies to help support it. And then in my mind, I thought, well, if one of these companies dips or has a slow period, at least there's other opportunities to help keep things even, or ultimately, hopefully, keep things going on a growth trend. And that's what led me onto the path that I'm on today, where we, in my holding company, we have, it'll be 61 entities by the end of this month, which is today. And then we have over 150 joint ventures around the world with some incredible people, partners. And what I love to do at this part of my career, especially when it comes to what you and your team have built, is how can I help, whether startups or CEOs of early stage companies, all the way up to Fortune 100 companies. How can we take what I've built? How can we take our access, our strategies, and create new value? How can we help companies not dilute the founders out of their own companies by coming up with new, unique ways to generate revenues or increase profit margins, or like I said before, connect them with strategic partners that they may not have had access to? And I love that. I think I love that because I never had that. And so I do love to come in and help and support people that may need a little extra assistance, may be sitting on something amazing, but don't know the right people. And Desmond, in the music industry, as well as many others, it is who you know, and that does suck, but that's a reality. So I love to be a conduit to help people make it, because I've seen some amazingly talented people that are better than some of the top performers in the world, but they don't know the right people. They don't know where to go, and therefore nobody gets to hear their music.
Yeah, 100%. That's so true. I feel like, that let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about how, I think first off, it's great that, and I want to do the same exact thing, right? I want to say, okay, had to put ourselves through a bunch of loops and ups and downs and figuring things out by ourselves. And then ultimately it must feel really gratifying to get to a point and be like, all right, it's time to give back. I made it through. And if I can make the route a little bit easier while still allowing somebody to learn, that's what it's all about, right? So talk about, because right now people are at home, people have to be more creative. Right now is a big self-reflective period for us collectively, where we can take some time and say, hey, well, how can I better myself? Or, hey, that idea I've always had, why not explore that a little bit more? Talk about what it took in the beginning, right? Well, let's talk about the first stages, the origins, because if you go on your LinkedIn, you have an article that you wrote, and it's called The 7,327th Night of My Overnight Success. So, hey, you're over 7,000 days, and that is definitely more, the realistic way of what it looks like, what overnight success looks like. I had some friends say, yeah, overnight success is, 15 years, or overnight success is X amount of failures. Talk about that, and talk about the day one till getting to that 7,000th, or that breaking turning point, tipping point.
Yeah, the funny thing now, I have to add, I think almost exactly another 365 days to that article. But day one started, as crazy as it sounds, I'd be 8 years old helping my dad in his beauty company, helping fill nail care products. So he developed a brand called Formula 10, and I'd love to go to work with him. I'd love to sit with the people in the warehouse or in the filling side of the plant and sit there and actually get my hands dirty and work. I've always been a worker, and it doesn't matter what it is. I don't have, I don't think I do. They have to ask other people, but I don't have a stitch of ego or too much pride that makes me obnoxious. I'll clean a bathroom just like I'll go and try to help a company raise $1 million. It doesn't matter if something needs to get done. I'm there to do it. And so day one, outside of that article, was really roughly 8 years old. But outside of that, it was probably when I was 19 and 20s with the restaurant, and then going into the beauty industry. That's when day one started, and no idea how difficult it would be. I guess I definitely I go into everything, unfortunately, thinking puppy dogs and ice cream, because I feel people are inherently good, and I don't blame anybody for what they may or may do to me, or what I'm trying to accomplish for them. They weren't raised in my household. They didn't go through the set of experiences that I went through, and they don't have my ideas of values and morals. So with that being said, how somebody acts, I have no control over that. And who knows what they're going through, and especially now, desperate times call for desperate measures. But what I do have control over is how they affect my life, or how they affect what I'm trying to do. So Desmond, I hope you don't go through this, but most likely the more you put yourself out there, you will go through this. Mm-hmm. And when you let a snake in the room, that's okay. But the important thing is how to correctly get them out as quickly as possible. And you have to unfortunately be cold, and that's not my nature. But if someone is showing that they have ulterior motives, or they're not there to support the overall idea, or to do good things, they have to go, because that's just this is my my ideas. This isn't law, but if someone's there to potentially hurt you or hurt what you've built, and they're an adult, male or female, they have to go. I'm not talking about 18-year-old kids that are still trying to figure out life. There's an age that comes into play where if someone's no good, they're no good. And unless you're a priest or a teacher or some sort of guardian, it's not your job to help them be a better person. In your case, you have a company, you're taking investments. Your job is to protect that company at all costs, and your job is to protect all of your stakeholders. And that means sometimes being a badass and making sure that nobody breaks in there and does you or your company, employees, or investors any harm.
Yeah, 100%. And you just mentioned it. It doesn't mean that you're not a nice person or good person. And a lot of times you're like, shoot, it's that whole quote. It's like sometimes you have to, be a lion to actually, be the sheep that you are, or be the, just be able to relax and do you know what I mean? But it's tough, and you go through the learning curve and the ups and downs and the bumps. So talk about persistence, because anyone at home right now that has that idea about, I want to create an idea or follow through with it. In the beginning, right, you think about all the upside and all the good things, and that's great, because that sparks the inspiration, and it keeps you motivated. But just, you also want to have that source of sense of awareness, because let's say it does get large and it does start to generate and snowball and get that traction, not everyone may have the same motive as you. So, it's not paying a lot of attention to that, but that's enough in understanding that, hey, this is going to happen. For example, I'll do a basketball reference. Even the championship teams, they lose some games along the way, and they learn en route to make it
Sure.
to the championship.
Oh, it's so true. And I love the sport analogy. The same thing goes to Babe Ruth. Nobody talks about how many strikeouts or walks he had, but he's known as one of the most powerful hitters of all time. So, what's really interesting about the human nature, and I had an amazing call with what I would say a very well-respected CEO of a ton of nursing homes. He's I think it's a family legacy. It's been around forever, and they help people, which those are the type of calls that I love. But he reached out to me because he is involved in this whole craziness going on with people trying to buy and sell N95 masks and hand sanitizers. It's just crazy. You're better off avoiding it because it's just the Wild West. And the funny thing was, as successful as this person was, as seasoned as this person was, and we're talking mid to late 50s,
Mm-hmm.
is soliciting me to help him finance a deal between two large governments to buy and to move these masks. And I didn't want to be rude, and I had to interrupt him during his pitch. I said, I don't understand. Do you honestly think that this government, which is a world leader, and this other government, a world leader, needs you? I'm like, I don't understand. Can you step outside of what you're involved in and think about it and get the hell out of it? Because you're involved in something that doesn't make any sense. And the point I'm trying to make is, whether times are good or bad, especially now when times are bad, people find themselves involved in situations that if they just took a moment, pumped the brakes, and thought about it, it makes no sense. I don't know if you've experienced this, but people that are good at one industry are all of a sudden trying to make a killer score in something that they have no experience in, no relationships in, and no idea what they're doing, but they're so smart over here that something happens where they don't really realize what's going on. They get involved in something, and now they're trying to make a deal that's not even a real deal.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most fascinating things I see, and it happens so often. But long story long, I felt bad when I hung up the phone with this guy, but he called me 2 days later, and he was thanking me. He's like, you know what? I don't know what I was doing or why I even got sucked into that. I started thinking, $10 million, $100 million deals, and he thanked me, and that made me feel better. But it's just it's funny. I'm trying to get. It's funny how the human psyche starts to believe something that's not real,
Yeah.
especially in today's time. And then you're spending all this time, energy. You're burning bridges. You find yourself in a situation where you feel you're too deep to try to claw out. You want to save face. You made introductions, but a lot of people have to just sometimes turn their phone off, sit in a room, and think about, what am I really involved in? Is it real? And is it really worth my time? That's why, beginning of this part of the podcast is when you said, where should your time be spent? What makes the most sense? And at this point in my career, I've preached for a while. I'll invest in me. I know what I can return. I don't play the stock market anymore. I don't throw money into anything that I have no control over. I know what I can do, and I know what I can generate. That's where people need to think about, what is their skill. If they want to make a change and strategize on the new norm of what's going on, who do they know in their arsenal, and where can they add value, and where can A and B equal Z, not where can A and B equal minus a different letter. The people's ideas, collaborations, and partnerships are so off balance. A partnership is, what can I combine this with that with, so everybody can do better, not what can I take from somebody else. That's not a partnership. That's a terrible mentality as far as building a business or building your network. You need to go into every room and say, hey, I'm here to add value. I'm not here to take anything away from anybody. But what can we do together to be more powerful and more successful?
Yeah, and a lot of times people, they're looking at a short-term goal, right? And short-term goals are Is that really worth your time? You mentioned, well, the word is probably scope creep, where, for example, and I'll even use Festiie, for example, our company. So we started with this device and we knew that we're solving an issue. Um, and this is made, grassroots, organic, for festival goers by festival goers. So we're pushing, we got a team together. Great. We're pulling in parts. And then someone says, oh, what if it can do this too? Oh, what if it can also
Yeah.
do this feature?
Feature creeping. Yeah. Then all of
Yeah,
a sudden you
yeah.
never release a product. Yeah,
And then
been there.
and then by the time, like, and that's the whole thing that we've had to learn and come to terms with and say, hey, you know what? We learned we're still going to be better off for it, but it might take you on a little detour. And then you realize, man, just sticking to the simple product it would get you out into the market, get that traction going, and then you can add that stuff down the line. So anyone at home, if you're, have that idea and you're trying to go down this path, literally, like, it really is important to keep it simple in the beginning. And then, as Brian mentioned, what are you good at? It has to stem from passion, because there will be so many nights where you're literally running off the fumes of passion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I call them. That's the only thing keeping you going. So if you don't have that, yeah. If you don't have that, it's like, no, because then it becomes this forceful act. And I was saying off air that when Festiie started, I was a professional athlete prior, so we needed to raise early funds before we could even go pitch to investors, or felt, I guess you could even say, confident at the time, just rounding up in very early stages. And Festiie prompted me to start my own training and to bring in extra funds to fund Festiie. And then all of a sudden, this company starts off, but it's not this company that I know nothing about. It's being able to combine, diving into the festival space, learning about that, but then utilizing the skills I have prior to build something else, and then have them both work out together. And even last week during the quarantine, we released a stay-at-home workout, and it's called Festiie Fitness. So it's like combining the two, you know what I mean?
Well, it's brilliant. It's what real survivors figure out. We have a large hemp and CBD segment of our business, and everybody was freaking out about that whole industry is on hold right now. So what we did is we converted everything we could over to creating hand sanitizers. A lot of the same ingredients in production is very similar to CBD isolate extraction. Mm-hmm. So we actually grew those segments, but you got to be fast. You got to know the right people. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have the relationships in the beauty industry to be able to get components such as bottles, caps, and pumps, because right now that's the hardest thing to find.
True.
But when you start connecting all of these relationships and businesses, you can navigate through anything. But the problem is, what are people's needs? That's what justifies the worth of time and return. For me, I feel like I know what's important. I don't need anything. All I want to do is be treated kindly, and I want to treat people kindly. Mm-hmm. But if someone wants to drive around in a Ferrari every year and a new one, then their needs are going to be radical. Therefore, they're going to have to go and produce crazy things. And if they want to maintain that lifestyle, that's when I see people start to fall off the path and start to, go against what maybe a good integrity person may do, and make sure that they continue to live a lifestyle they want to live. I'm not knocking it, but what people want out of life, whether it's health or nice things or family, it's different for everybody. But if you want crazy amounts of things and you think that's important, then you sure as shit better make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then you got to make sure it keeps coming in. One of the things I do love about what's going on is there needed to be a reset in the world. There needed to be a reset in what these influencers were paid for, really not having a tremendous amount of talent, but they know how to get attention. And to me, that's a great talent. If they can get eyeballs on their pages, that's amazing. But that led to them being paid a crazy amount of money, which the domino effect of that is startup companies that want to promote their brands that know they have to use influencers can't afford it. Yeah. So there had to be a reset there. There had to be a reset in the housing market. There had to be a reset in everything, because there's no way that people's income could justify buying anything at some point. And that's when people start to not live a healthy lifestyle. That's when people start to really just be on a hamster wheel, which in my companies, I've been there. I get it. But I'm glad that there is this reset going on. I do not want anybody to go through this crazy times and be hurt and be scared. But I do believe that coming out of it, things will be much more realistic. And hopefully people will have a better understanding as to what's important and where their time should be spent during the day.
Yeah, you mentioned realistic. So talk about that. Like talk about right now what you think the current state of everything and yeah, we're at home. Hopefully everyone should be doing that self-reflection, right? And deciding, maybe what they want to do, how they want to occupy their time when we are able to get back out there, right? And as it pertains to the music festival space and music industry, that's the whole thing I've been trying to mention is, all right, festival goers, people who covet, we all covet, I'm one of them, and treat the festival space as if it were our sanctuary, right? Well, if that's the case, then can we all, look within and say, you know what? Next time I go back to a festival, I'm going to be super appreciative of everything from the artist to the installation to the people I walk across or walk around and also the path, the trail I leave behind me. Be cognizant of, am I leaving trash behind my, like that is something you can totally, that's super easy to do. Throw your trash away so that people aren't dancing on trash. If someone's wearing a cool outfit, you can compliment them. If you see somebody on the side, just like who just maybe looks like they, could just have someone talk, just reach out and say something, introduce yourself or whatnot. Just how can we collectively all elevate during these times? And
Sure.
why do you see some positivity that could stem from this?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And I hope that's the outcome. I do hope that people start to slowly get back to what their new norm is and be a little more appreciative about what they have opposed to the desire and the need for what they don't have. A lot of us are very, very privileged and very lucky to have what we have. And when you focus on the good stuff, you can find self-worth and feel proud. And then that's when you build upon it. But if you're sitting there thinking about what you don't have, and I mentioned this in that article and a couple of other interviews, that social media influencer world has shifted people to just be brainwashed about feeling terrible because they don't live in a certain house, they don't drive a certain car, and they don't have a certain pocketbook or a pair of shoes. That's empty. That's not where your focus should be. Where did you? What I love breadcrumbing where a person's gone and how far they've come. It's all relative. If people start to see what they've accomplished over a month, over 2 months, over 3 months, look at those accomplishments, feel good about those, and then build upon it. You look back a year or two later and you've done amazing things. But if you look at it the wrong way or with the wrong magnifying glass, anybody can feel terrible about their lives. Even the most successful people in the world can find something that they don't have or they're not doing. And if they focus on it, they'll feel like crap. That goes for anybody. And hopefully what's going on now, the shift will be, people were forced to focus on what they have because there's no way of getting other things. There's no way of going to events like festivals. There's no way of being involved in, conference calls or meetings or being around people that are flamboyant about their stuff. People are trapped home, hopefully with loved ones or families, and they're focusing on the good and being thankful that they're not sick in the hospital or being thankful that they're not lying somewhere waiting to be buried, because that's a reality right now.
For sure.
But as it relates to what you've built, you hit on something I've been working on for 20 years, is building these parallel communication networks to allow people to connect and communicate regardless of any Wi-Fi or internet. This is something that hit home to me since 2001 when those towers went down. If Nextel wasn't out at ground zero, there would have been no communication whatsoever for any of those first responders or anybody that was in that area. And if you look at today, minus your ideas and what you've built, because you and I are on the same page, those hub and spoke networks is still what's deployed. That's still where money is being spent, throwing up a cell tower, throwing up Wi-Fi stations. But if there's no power and there's no internet, then your cell phone cannot connect to a network. Therefore, all you can do is hopefully play some downloaded save files that you have on it. But when you start building networks like we've built with Nodal and what you're building with Festiie, and what we're doing with SonoCoin, the ability to transfer data and connect and locate and find people regardless of any type of traditional networks, that's when you start to really make a big difference. And that's where you start to see a market that is real. because the current numbers are only a market that shows who's connected to a cell tower or who's connected to a Wi-Fi station. There's still 50, 60% of the world that are walking around with a smartphone, most likely an Android device, but they're not connected to any network. Therefore, they're not being categorized. They're not being counted. They're not being looked at as a market. But when you have networks such as a low power Bluetooth mesh network that's connecting devices all over the world, now we can show what is the real market look like, and what can we provide and push and help those people in countries where they don't have access to the networks that we have access to.
Correct. It's so true. And that's one of the things that prompted us. Now, we're not gonna put ourselves out there and say blatantly, oh, we believe that, this can make things safer. But we could say that our device, provides that peace of mind, because, we all know that. And another thing is, during these times, we've had people on the podcast and we're discussing, we go real deep. And I quickly began to see that this was evolving towards something larger than what initially, we thought. Just throw it on and have a good time and spread some positivity. But one of the ways to do that is reflect on, all right, how can we all be better? What issues can we, it's almost like speaking out. So I've had someone come up here and talk about sexual harassment at events, right? At crowded events, and what to do. Had someone come on here and talk about people that overdose at events. These are things that go under the rug. We all know it happens. And you know what? Like, if you can find somebody, if it only takes you 5-10 minutes to find them instead of 2-3 hours, because of this whole, cell phone issue where the towers are congested and they're not responding, even if there is service, right? I mean, that can go so far, right? And even if it saves one person, it's worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, like, we're just, our device is not just US. This is global, and we are in a globally connected world, and we all need to start understanding that. And that all brings it back down to now, where it's like taking away from things. It'd be interesting if right now, addition by subtraction, in regards to us not being able to do so many things, well, we got to start looking inwards, because another quote that I use is, inwards is infinite. And, that's where the self-exploration really is. And then we can get back out there and then provide a better, festival spirit. Like the season might be postponed, but the spirit should be there. And we should all still be looking on ways towards, elevating. And if you're feeling good one day, hey, how hard is it to reach out to somebody else and send some positivity their way, right? So
absolutely,
it's activity on multiple levels.
Yeah, and it's important to do it without any strings attached. You don't say, "Hey, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Oh, can you do this for me?" It has to just be a genuine, "Hey, I'm just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. You look great today." It's got to be genuine and not attached to some sort of ulterior motive.
Exactly. So let's talk about, you've been involved with so many ventures. You're still involved with so many ventures. I think it's really refreshing, and it's great, man, that, you're able to maintain, I'm sure you had to battle with the ego, right? It wasn't like this from day one. You went through different paths and had to understand, whoa, is there a part where you might be like, wow, I am the one that's standing in front of myself, and I have to find a way through that. And that's the way to get to the field. The analogy that I use a lot is, imagine going to a beautiful park and you see all this, beautiful terrain, but there's a fence in front of you. So instead you're focusing on the fence. The fence is robbing me from all that stuff, but you realize there's a way around the fence. There's a way through the fence. And there's more after the fence.
Yeah, what's funny is in your analogy, which is awesome, the fence were other people. So my ego and the way that I'm wired is I want people to feel good. And that was my biggest detriment, is trying to figure out how to make people feel good. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's my ass on the line with all of these companies or ventures. It's my name borrowing money. I'm the one, if it goes down, I go down, and someone else can just go get another job or figure it out. But my biggest obstacle was bringing people in that I shouldn't have, because I wanted them to feel good. And that's something that I still battle with today. I want people to feel valued. I want to help people succeed. And that's something I had to stop and rewire my brain and look at it differently. I need to be the one. I used to be the one that ate last, and that hurt me. And because if I ate first, I'd make sure everybody else was even more protected.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was a downturn or some crisis, if I'm eating last and there's nothing to eat, I have nothing to go to replenish or to leverage.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was the one that was making sure that I was properly compensated first for my own, and it's funny thing is for my work, I was supporting other people for a long time that because I wanted them to feel good about themselves, and that was hard for me to figure that out. And I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but in my world, I have to make sure that my strength is my health. My strength is, I'm making sure that everything is under my, I don't want to use the word control, but in today's world, you have to move fast. So I got to make sure that I'm the one that has final say or first say or whatever say you want to come up with to do something. And that means, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do it now because we need to survive. I can't go and run it by people that have no rights even being there, but it was my fault for bringing them in. Now I have to run it by them. It's a crazy, it was like a juggling act that didn't need to even exist. And I created that. So now it's what I love about the structure I have, companies that are mine, they're my say, and this is what we're doing, and support it. Companies that aren't mine, what I love about that part of my life is I know what I needed. So I'm there to help those CEOs. I'm there to support them. I'm here to combine what I have and offer it to them and give them more assets, more opportunities to leverage. And I'm there to protect them that if they have to go through any capital raises, what can we do together to maybe make money where you don't have to go to the market and raise money? Because if you're out in the market or doing a roadshow and trying to raise money, you're not focusing on your business.
Yeah.
So whatever you were working on or creating is disappearing every day because now you're trying to raise money. And what's going to happen is you're going to run out of money because you got to play catch up. And then you're going to have to go back to the market again. So what can we do to make sure that we can have cash flows coming in?
Yeah.
And secondly, if you have to raise money, I make sure it's the last money you ever have to raise, and we're going to figure it out from that part on.
Yeah. Let's talk about that whole fight or flight mode, right? I mean, we've experienced it in our early stages, and we're still going through it. But it was every day is fight or flight. The task list is immense, and you finish it, and then the next day there's more tasks, and then you get caught in this whole marketing, R&D, raising capital, right? So many things, and you're wearing so many hats. So it's such a fast track in regards to learning and skill development, which is a pro, but there has to be some form of work-life balance to that, right? So talk about that, because I'm sure you mentioned it. You've dealt with so many startups, and I mean, we're constantly going through it and evaluating it. Sometimes we'll push ourselves to a burnout and then have to recover, which may, and then look at it, look in retrospect and say, man, that work-life balance could actually give us better productivity as opposed to that. So it's almost like we're gauging that. But talk about how your experience with work-life balance and your whole take on that, because you said it's very important. Your health is very important. So I think that gets overlooked because so many times, and I'm not sure if this is because of social media or whatnot, but we're glorifying people that go 3 days without sleep.
Yeah, that's not the way to do things, and I am not your spokesperson on that. And my mom always said your health is your wealth, and so does P. Diddy, but I think my mom said it first. But yeah, I don't have a time zone, and because of my nature, I work on everybody else's time zones, and we operate throughout 17 different cities around the world. So we are a 24/7, 7 days a week operation. But I can't be like Ebenezer Scrooge. I understand that people need to spend time with their families, and they need to be able to balance that. But you have to work. It's just a reality. And I've always been of the mindset of, if I'm not doing it, somebody else is. Therefore, I'm not going to obtain the opportunity. So I'm always accessible. And I'll always respond back to anybody. I'll call anybody back, and I'll email or text anybody. I don't care who you are. If you live in the street and you found a way to contact me, or if you're running a big company, I treat everybody with respect, and I'm always accessible. So to answer your question, I do not have the appropriate work life balance. And I just think it's the way I'm wired, but I'm not complaining. It works for me. My brain is wired to produce and perform. That's just how I'm wired, and that's how I feel self-worth. It's not for money. It's the byproduct. Money's a byproduct. I love to create opportunities. I love to make sure that we put things in place to see them flourish. What I did learn about myself is free time is my worst enemy. Because if I sit down and don't have my mind occupied on something, I'll find another need that needs to be filled, just like you did when you created Festiie. Find the need, fill need will never go out of style. And I'll come up with another idea, concept, company, or partnership, which then gets thrown onto the plate. Again, that's just how I'm wired, and it works for me. But a lot of people will make themselves sick or nuts trying to live in my world. And but it's just to each their own. But not complaining, but I can't preach proper life work balance because I don't have it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So my whole thing is, but it seems like you had a level of acceptance where you knew what you're capable of, and you're like, you know what, this is what I'm capable of, and this is probably the road that it entails, and I'm not going to, like, you made the decision, you committed to it. You're not going to be like the next day, like, well, how do I feel about that? You're like, this is what I do.
I'm all, once I say yes, I'm in 100%. And people have a hard time understanding how I can always give 100% to a million different things. Well, it's easy. Whatever needs to get done, you get it done, on and off the plate. There's your 100%. At the time, I'm dedicated 100% to one thing until whatever it needs to be gets accomplished, and then on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But I do know, just like the example with the nursing home CEO and medical supplies, I do know what not to get involved in. And I do know that I always speak my mind, and you may have experienced this too, Desmond. You've done some great things at a young age. One of the biggest obstacles for me was always being the youngest guy in the room. And because of that, even though I may have been smarter, I may have known the right things to do, I could have pounded my hand on the table, but nobody would listen. I just learned that people have to know their place. And that's not to sound obnoxious or rude. A lot of people are connectors. I'm a connector. And because I'm a connector, I know to keep my mouth shut after I connect A and B. And I sit back and I watch it become something amazing. A lot of connectors, because they have ego or they want to sound important, it will interfere the great work that they did. And their work was their connection. That's it. Know your place. I know this guy. I know this girl. I put them together. Shut up after that. Just shut up. Your opinions, your ideas, you're just causing noise, and you're only doing it because you want to sound important. Your job was the most important job in the world. You put peanut butter and jelly together. Sit back and enjoy it. Don't try to add anything else to it. It's already perfect. Just enjoy it, and then make sure you're protected and be part of the upside. And a lot of people need to just understand that, and that's something I've always been good at. I know how to connect people, and I know my place. And I sit back and I let it ride.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been able to script whatever it is into a language that I understand, right? And it allows you to draw those analogies and synchronicities and see, okay, this parallels with this. So when I say that, I mean, when I went from basketball, professional athlete, to tech hardware, I created this analogy. I'm like, well, hardwood to hardware, and that kind of stuck with me. So then people know, oh, hardwood to hardware, right? I love basketball. Let me transform basketball into the tech and hardware field. So I'm still playing basketball. It just looks different, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah, you're practicing for the games. You're learning, oh, I need to learn the plays. Well, I need to learn how this hardware works. What's necessary? Okay, go out there and test it. Okay, and then getting out there in the business world. But being able to draw that parallel and understand, okay, this is the parallel. I'm not going to try to say now I need to learn, figure this part out. No, I have to be able to assess it and understand it and stay in my lane and see that that's all that needs to be done. Because as you mentioned, sometimes if you just let your ego and, oh, I need to tinker here and do this and do this. No, my whole thing with basketball is like, if I'm recruiting a player or a teammate, right? So for the tech company, I'm like, am I recruiting somebody that's all about R&D and he's an engineer? I'm not going to be like, all right, Mr. Engineer, I need you to be the best. I need you to get your hands dirty in this marketing campaign. If his personality or her personality is not like that, right? That's like getting a 3-point shooter onto your team and then telling them, all right, I want you to dunk on everyone. It's like,
Sure.
there's something about KYP, knowing your personnel, and maybe talk about that, because that, I believe, is one of your strengths, right? Because if you're able to connect people, then you must know, okay, I can identify his strength, I can identify her strength, boom, that's a match.
Absolutely. And that only comes through experience and then feeling confident in dictating what those orders look like. Early on, like I said, I wanted everybody to feel important. I don't like titles. I don't like business cards. I felt like I want everybody to feel self-worth, because that's what I would want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. What you're saying, it has to be. You wouldn't put, I don't know, Muggsy Bogues as a center, would you? He's 5'3", but you have to know where to put people in order to succeed. And that's how you make people feel worth. And again, I'm learning all of that as I continue to evolve and as I try to continue to be a better person every day. And some things only come from experience. You're able to do what you're doing, no doubt, because of your training and your work ethic to be a basketball player. I did the same thing to be a baseball player. I worked every day, 365, busted my ass.
Mm-hmm.
I miss it every day. And you probably miss your talent and your sport every day. It's not about the money. When you find something you love, and I loved baseball, I bled baseball, and the minute I stopped doing it was the biggest mistake in my life. Well, I don't think I'd ever be a major league ball player, but I sure as hell could have been some sort of single, double, triple A player, but doing something I love. And that's one of the most important things that people need to understand. Your life, your time, it is finite. It's gonna end. There's no way of figuring it out. Look at Steve Jobs. Look at some of the most wealthiest people in the world. If they haven't figured it out, you're gonna disappear one day. So make sure you're finding a way to do something you love every day while you're making sure that you have a livelihood and you're able to sustain paying your bills.
For sure. We have this quote. It's called, and I'm sure you can relate to it, and not in a negative way, but in just there's a certain beauty about it. It's called, athletes die twice, right? And it's like, you have that, your career, it, and I'm definitely super grateful that I'm still connected to the game, but you do have to go through that period. Shoot, I'm not playing at this very, very, very high level, but I can appreciate that journey and then, still be connected to the game, still be connected to it, and still, not change it for the world, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the good thing about it, you're able to do it with a smile on your face and understand you're still participating in the same concepts, but now in the business world. And that's where you're finding that balance and you're continuing your passions to succeed and to win. You play professional sports to win. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're doing with Festiie. So I'm proud of you and would love to help you any way I can to continue to grow that great company.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I mean, honestly, just sharing this wisdom is already, definitely already making its wave of inspiration. And, because that's what it is, right? It's a lot of pounding the pavement. It's a lot of figuring out, making your way through things and creating ways around it. If you can't go straight around it, then, find a way around here. If this door is closed, then all right, let's try the window, and doing that. But understanding that in doing so, it is when you're bringing pieces and people that have the same kind of vision, value, integrity, and are making those ethical decisions, it allows that to happen in a beautiful way where everyone can really enjoy not just the destination, but the process in getting to the destination.
Sure. Yeah, if I can add to that door closed analogy, because a lot of times people can probably relate. I know I can. It might be closed for a reason. And the people that say try a window or try the chimney or whatever they or go through the garage, they're the ones that succeed. But there's a lot more people that tried other ways to get into a situation that haven't succeeded, and that's when it comes into how valuable is your time, and how important is that opportunity, or can you create your own, or is there another one that will give you that domino to allow you to succeed, to allow you to feel some power and some self-worth, that then you can go back to that door, but it's open this time. Maybe the door being closed is a reason that you need to go out and perfect whatever you are trying to accomplish, sharpen your skills, build up your network and your Rolodex, start getting some great history behind you and some accomplishments, and you go back and that door is wide open. But I just didn't mean to interrupt your analogy, because it's used forever. But sometimes a door being closed is a good thing, and continue your path in a different direction.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's yeah. I'll just add to the analogy. Oh, the door's closed. Well, let's go for a stroll over here. Let's check out. There's a cool park here. We don't need to be indoors right now. We can be outdoors. And then you come
Exactly.
back and the door's open. So just how you mentioned it, it's assessing that, and that's when the whole ego comes back into play, and just saying bye to the ego, to allow that to happen. It's almost like the whole swimming upstream and swimming against stream, and knowing when is the time to do so, or just going by that feeling. Let's give the music festival people a little a little love right now, because well, the cool part is this kind of conversation, these kind of relationships, to me personally, are what I built at music festivals. You meet somebody, and that relationship extends beyond the music festival. You get into a deep conversation about life, and then just that exchange of energy. So talk about, you mentioned that you have an affinity for music festivals. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the idea of offering connectivity, it gets overwhelming. I'm sure you and your team have experienced that. When you go and you describe what you're building or what you've built and what you deployed, it's exactly like saying, well, what does the internet do, or what does a telecom do? You're connecting people and moving data. And the important thing about what Festiie is, and what our companies like Nodal and Sonalcoin is, how do you connect those people and enhance their experience when they're sitting there frustrated trying to connect to Snapchat or Instagram because the bandwidth is overloaded. And it's a continued repetitive process. You look at the 49ers stadium spent a lot of money to upgrade their entire network to be sure that everybody could connect to that network. But now you have, every year, new phones come out, larger files, there's streaming, the video quality is better, everything is increased. Therefore, it's already outdated. That's obsolete. All that equipment is obsolete. It's worthless. So when we were developing this, and I've been doing this for almost 2 decades now, these cell phones that we carry around in our pocket, they're more powerful than the computers that powered the internet 10 years ago. And when you create a network that utilizes the cell phone as a way to connect and route information in a secure fashion, game over. You're a software play with some select cool hardwares that you can really have some fun with. And the people now are upgrading the equipment. They're getting new phones every year, every 6 months, whatever people's appetite is for the newest and greatest thing. And because they're upgrading their hardware, when you have a large volume of them going into a stadium, going into a festival, you've created one of the most powerful networks in the world. Now, the trick is, who do you allow on that network? What information do you allow to go through it? What do you need to do in that internet of the moment, which I've always called it? What do you do to enhance those people's experience? Because they paid a lot of money to go to a music concert or music festival, and they're spending a lot of time there. Now, what can we do to make that time as enjoyable and as pleasurable as possible? And that was a use case I wanted to always do with our mesh networking technologies and our partners in the music space. I was doing this with SFX Entertainment until they blew up. They were one of the biggest EDM festivals in the world.
Oh yeah, Tomorrowland. They're still
yeah.
going. Yep.
But the original company couldn't figure out how to make money. They're selling 400,000 tickets to go to an EDM festival in Brazil or in the Netherlands or wherever these giant festivals were, but they could not make money. So we would go in there with this way of, okay, you have all these people coming into a festival. Let's offer them constant connectivity. Let's push out exclusive content with our network, and let's increase your business model. And what you said early on, what was number 5 on our list was security. Now that's number 1. Now, if we can know exactly where somebody is, but we don't know who they are because we're very privacy centric and focused. We know where somebody is. We can alert them if there's, God forbid, a shooting or a bomb or some sort of event. And that is the reality that we live in. There is always going to be a chance of something happening at a live venue where there's a lot of people. That's the norm. But if we can help direct those people to get out as quickly as possible, if we can inform them what's going on as quickly as possible, and if we can direct them into a path that is the safest path out, opposed to people running into more danger, that's when my mentality started to flip and really focus on the security aspect at live venues is crucial. And giving people, at least notifying people of what's going on will help them navigate through that crisis. In addition to obviously helping sponsors and helping the companies be able to monetize it and make money, and even more importantly, be able to continue to monetize that guest experiences even after they left the show. Because otherwise, you're going to have to wait until you see them again next year. Hopefully, that's not a good business model. What can we do to keep them engaged, connected, and excited for the next event or the next live venue or the next music festival that's coming nearby? That's how you really build a loyal and super engaged consumer. And then we've done this with dear friend is the head of CBS Viacom China. He owns the Storm Festivals, which is the largest EDM festivals in Southeast Asia. And we've gone through the process of incredible partnerships and utilizing our tech, which I'd love to combine with Festiie, especially Sonocoin, which is the first audible blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So now you can embed offers or promotions or any type of data through sound. How exciting is that if someone's just at a festival and we embed some sort of offer, whether it's a Coors Light deal or another sponsor that's there, or something.
I sorry to cut you off, but I love what I'm hearing. I mean, I feel like there are so many synergies already in place. And you mentioned it, you said internet of the moment, like that's huge. That's exactly what we're pushing out. And in like 2014, T-Mobile set up like 11 towers to increase Wi-Fi at EDC. But as you mentioned, every year there's a new bandwidth coming out. And when you have congregations of 50,000 to 150,000 people at one festival and one location in that little 2-mile radius, there will be congestion no matter what. And that's why exactly what you mentioned from the security standpoint as well. So my mother provided security for Coachella, for Insomniac events, for all types of events, and so I got to see that side of things, the staffing guards for events, understanding the placement, what gets reported, what happens at festivals, all the liabilities associated with it. And then of course you mentioned, the thing that we don't like to speak about, but it's a reality is, in the case of an emergency, being able to send your attendees a message that says, please exit through the south exit only, right? Do not go to the north exit. So it could be something of that serious nature where you are able to give them a direct route and a safer route of exit. And at the same time, being able to identify certain things or on a better, more positive note, offer those deals where 2-for-1 beverage at this location, right? And have that where it's not just a line of sight beacon that you pass by and it triggers, but something that has a full range radius. So if you're within 1,000 feet of this vendor over the next half hour, we're hooking it up with X amount of deals. So stuff like that is really why, Festiie started. Our whole vision was, the festival smart band, but really, and I'm sure we can both agree on this. Our minds are looking at the future of event technology as a whole.
Exactly. You have to continue to evolve. And when we get through this, maybe a 10,000 seat theater is going to seat 3,000 people and there's going to be space. Who knows what the future looks like? which is even more of a reason why every attendee at those festivals have to be correctly monetized to ensure that those festivals can exist. And how do you do that? It's through technology, it's through exclusive content, it's through new ways to engage and increase the opportunity for enhancing the experience, but also enhancing the revenues to make sure that they can continue to go on.
Exactly. And the festival community, if you attend one festival, you're going to want to attend another and another. It's a very supportive community, tight-knit group of people, but it's millions of individuals and amongst throughout the whole world. So this has been great, Brian. Definitely love that we were able to connect and speak about so many things from an entrepreneur level to the state of music festivals. Whatever the future holds for music festivals, there are people, we all are contributing to the experience, but we are really working hard to not just get things back to where they were, but get things back to another level in which we can all enjoy, appreciate, and just collectively be at an elevated state together. Brian, how do we stay in touch with you? How do we show our support? Because we appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure people are going to be inspired by this and may want to reach out and just shed thanks.
Yeah, no, of course. Brian J. Esposito. I mainly use Twitter or LinkedIn, and EIE.ROCKS. So it's EIE.rocks is our corporate website. You can email me, message me anywhere, and I'd love to continue to work with you and Festiie and do some great things together. And I truly appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Likewise. Yes, we'll definitely be talking. It's very refreshing and it feels good. That's one thing. It feels good to hear that someone understands what you have been, working on, and not just understands it, but it's like, oh yeah, what if we do this, and has the resources, because it takes a village, it takes minds to understand and strategize and bring it to life. And festival community, thanks for tuning in. Everybody stay positive. First off, reflect inwards and understand we'll be back out there soon. So everyone, Brian Esposito, Festiie Files, we're signing out. Peace, love, unity, and respect. Cheers.
Thanks, pal.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.